History usually remembers the men who knew how to charm a crowd, who smiled easily, who spoke in poetic words that echoed through generations. But history is not always fair. Sometimes, the men who truly carry nations on their shoulders are not loved, not celebrated, and not even fully understood. John Adams was one of those men. He was not born a hero, nor did he ever try to become one. Yet, when the fate of an unborn nation trembled between chaos and collapse, it was John Adams who stood firm, alone, stubborn, and unbreakable. John Adams was born on October 30, 1735, in the quiet farming town of Braintree, Massachusetts. His world was small and ordinary. There were no palaces, no silver spoons, no signs of future greatness. His father, also named John Adams, was a farmer, shoemaker, and church deacon, a man who believed deeply in discipline, faith, and hard work. From an early age, young John learned that comfort was temporary, but character was permanent. His childhood was filled with labor, strict rules, and long hours of study by candlelight. As a boy, Adams was intelligent but restless. He questioned everything. Authority did not impress him unless it was backed by reason. His father hoped he would become a minister, but John felt no calling toward blind obedience. Instead, he felt drawn toward ideas, law, justice, and the structure of human society. Education became his escape from the narrow boundaries of rural life. At just 16 years old, he entered Harvard College, where his sharp mind began to take shape. Harvard did not soften John Adams, it sharpened him. He read deeply, argued fiercely, and developed a lifelong habit of self-reflection through writing. He was not the most charming student, nor the most popular. He was blunt, intense, and often painfully honest. But he was driven by something stronger than ambition, an obsession with truth. After graduating, Adams became a schoolteacher for a short time, a job he despised. He soon realized that his true calling lay in law. As a lawyer, Adams believed that justice was sacred. The law, to him, was not a tool for power but a shield for fairness. This belief would soon test his courage in a way few men would dare to face. In 1770, Boston was a city on edge. Tensions between British soldiers and American colonists had reached a breaking point. One cold night, violence erupted. British soldiers fired into a hostile crowd, killing 5 civilians. The incident became known as the Boston Massacre. The streets burned with rage. The public demanded blood. No lawyer wanted to defend the British soldiers, they were already condemned in the court of public opinion. John Adams accepted the case. It was a decision that nearly destroyed his career. Friends warned him. Neighbors turned against him. He was called a traitor to his people. But Adams believed something greater was at stake. He believed that justice could not survive if it bent to anger. Standing in court, facing a hostile crowd, Adams defended the soldiers with facts, not emotion. Facts are stubborn things, he argued, and reminded the jury that law must stand above hatred. Most of the soldiers were acquitted. Years later, Adams would say that this act, defending the enemy, was one of the greatest services he ever gave his country. Because a nation built on injustice, he believed, could never be free. As conflict with Britain grew, Adams became a powerful voice for independence. In the Continental Congress, he was relentless. While others hesitated, feared war, or sought compromise, Adams pushed forward. He believed that liberty was worth any sacrifice. He spoke endlessly, argued passionately, and worked tirelessly behind the scenes. He was not loved, but he was respected. When the time came to draft the Declaration of Independence, Adams chose Thomas Jefferson to write it. Jefferson had the words, Adams had the fire. Together, they helped give birth to a nation. But independence came at a terrible personal cost. During the Revolutionary War, Adams was sent overseas as a diplomat to Europe. The journey was long and dangerous. He spent years away from home, separated from his wife Abigail and their children. In foreign lands, Adams faced humiliation, poverty, illness, and political isolation. He lacked charm and struggled with diplomacy, yet he never quit. He secured vital loans from the Dutch and helped negotiate alliances that kept the American cause alive. Throughout these years, Abigail Adams remained his anchor. Their letters were filled with love, intellect, and honesty. She advised him on politics, reminded him of moral responsibility, and challenged him when necessary. Abigail was not just a wife, she was a partner. Without her strength, John Adams might have broken. When the war finally ended, Adams returned home older, tired, and deeply changed. Yet his service was not over. He became the first Vice President of the United States under George Washington. It was a role he hated. He felt invisible, mocked, and powerless. He called the office the most insignificant office ever devised. Still, he served with loyalty and discipline. In 1797, John Adams became the second President of the United States. It was the most dangerous moment in the young nation's history. America was divided. Political parties had formed. Newspapers were vicious. France and Britain were locked in war, each demanding American support. Many politicians wanted war with France. They believed it would unite the country and strengthen power. John Adams believed it would destroy everything they had built. Against overwhelming pressure, Adams chose peace. He sent diplomats to France, even as his own cabinet betrayed him and his political party turned against him. He was insulted, ridiculed, and abandoned. But Adams refused to gamble with American lives for political popularity. The negotiations succeeded. War was avoided. It was the bravest decision of his life, and it cost him the presidency. In 1800, John Adams lost the election. Bitter and heartbroken, he left Washington quietly before dawn, refusing ceremony or applause. He returned to Massachusetts, convinced that history would forget him. For years, he lived in silence, watching the nation move forward without him. His friendship with Thomas Jefferson had collapsed into rivalry and bitterness. But time has a way of healing wounds. In their old age, Adams and Jefferson reconnected through letters. They reflected on liberty, mistakes, and the future of democracy. Two old revolutionaries, bound by history. On July 4, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence, John Adams lay dying. Weak and fading, he whispered his final words, "Thomas Jefferson survives." He did not know that Jefferson had died just hours earlier. John Adams died at the age of 90. Today, his legacy stands quietly but firmly. He was not perfect. He was proud, stubborn, and often difficult. But he was honest. He believed that leadership meant sacrifice. That morality mattered. That peace was sometimes braver than war. John Adams proved that a nation is not built by applause, but by courage. And sometimes, the greatest heroes are the ones who stand alone, uncheered, uncelebrated, but unbroken.